Welcome to IVRPA's, what is this, our fourth, I think, webinar of 2025. My name is Scott Whitty. I have the honor of being the IVRPA president, along with an exceptional board of dedicated VR professionals. IVRPA, the International VR Professionals Association, is the only international association dedicated to helping our members and the wider VR XR community of creators be more successful. These webinars present content that is difficult to find elsewhere. Today's webinar is an example of that. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to paid members on the IVRPA website, along with all past webinars. If you aren't currently a member, I encourage you to join IVRPA. It really is a great value. There will be a Q&A session at the end, and I think, Loren, that you had said you will take some questions through the presentation also to clarify some things.
Yes.
So anyway, if you want to ask a question, put it in the chat or use the Q&A or question and answer toggle or widget, whatever. Now, if you are putting something into the chat, above where you type it in, there'll be a blue line that says who you're sending it to. By default, it'll only go to the panelists. So be sure you choose that it goes to everyone if you want everyone to see that, including questions. That should do it. Now to the main act. Loren, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. I had to actually turn my phone off there. That's what I was doing. So, presentation today, titled Generative Virtual Tours, is more of like a gallery tour. I wanted to show you how I'm using AI in a workflow, trying to achieve a code-free design. The character on the front is from the 50s, and it's just kind of to lower the expectations. But I think you'll find what I'm about to show you interesting, and that's kind of what we're going to do today. So I want to quickly get to. I won't talk about where you get AIs and things like that, but when you're using it in a VR workflow or a content creation workflow, what are some guidelines to talk to it? How do you talk to it? That falls into the category of what we would call prompt engineering, and you've probably heard of that from generative image creation, but I'll show you if you're doing it in a code in this workflow, what you need to ask for, avoid, just kind of tips. Quickly show you I'm going to be covering 3 widgets that are one's for a commercial website that I'm working on. One is for a pop-up map in a virtual tour, a large facility, and then the third is a straight KR Pano type of a map. And I'll show you those, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I want to quickly get to how they were built without any programming using ChatGPT, and then I'll do that as a demonstration of what I would kind of call conversational hacking. And then I want to end with an important talk about how AI will impact SEO and how that increases amongst our professional members your business position, and how the authority score and XR and things like that and content creation will affect our business. So just want to end on a business note and a segue into future categories. So when you're talking to an AI, these are some in this type of a coding situation. What do you want to do? Avoid any pleasantries. They actually have studies that saying please, thank you, calling it by a name or whatever increases the processing on the backside and ends up actually being a lot of money. Think when you're just like if you're programming in code, when you're having it do things, think modular, just as you would program, or if you weren't programming, if you were working on a Photoshop file or some type of effect, right? Baby steps and do it. Same thing here. Don't ask for too much at a time. Build it iteratively. Don't expect perfection. The AI gets confused a lot. It hallucinates, and then you're gonna have to back up. So build iteratively and use a lot of version control and things like that. Probably the most important is don't lead the AI. you're going to want to make it think. You're going to ask it questions about, let's see what this looks like or whatever. That's when it starts to hallucinate because it actually can't think. It can only use information that it has available to you. It's a processing, not a thinking machine. And that's where I make most of the mistakes in the having it do things is that. Again, structure and context is a good one. And I found that when I have built something that works, I can use that as a template or a pattern to build the next thing. These are the widgets, and I should let me share. We'll throw it up afterwards, so I won't get you distracted. We'll put this in the Q&A, but you can see the links to these three. So these are the maps that I wanted that are all built without any programming. Now that's a little bit disingenuous because I do know how to program, and so in the construction of these, I might run across errors that if I didn't understand that it was applying some effect to, then I wouldn't be able to tell the AI what it had done wrong, and we would together hit a brick wall. But once I've created the widget, and the first one that I built was for the lawn care company, I believe it took me probably about 20, 30 hours to build it. And it's as a polygon, all of the interactions are smooth and have quadratic ease, in and out on them. It's using fav icons. So it's a very sophisticated map. It has full accessibility, mobile responsiveness. Uh, it would take me a lot longer to have programmed. And frankly, I don't know if I could have programmed it and had it working smoothly on both versions. And we'll get to that in a second. That was a template for then where I created a pop-up that sits in a KRPano tour using a Google API. And then the last one that we might look at is the KRPano gigapixel image map of a very large facility that is embedded in a KRPano. So I'm at pure native code at that point. But the point of this is to show you how easy this is to do. So if you know the cartoon and this is the point where maybe it doesn't work, but 3 demos where I'm going to take and show you the pattern and how I just change it. So let's I'll minimize this so it's out of the way. And the first one is the lawn care company, the service map. It's been broken up into the constituent pieces. You don't have to always do that. So it has CSS to control its look, JavaScript to control how it functions, and then the HTML is where the actual content goes. But if I double click on it, it brings up this widget. This sits in a WordPress site. It has rollovers, and any of these can be changed just by conversation. I could have it change the text or whatever else. I click on it, it brings up this. This is a Google API, right? So the only requirement is I had to get a key to pull in the Google Map API. That's a pretty simple process. Then so I have the ability to draw my own custom polygon. This is the lawn care. It shows their service area where they do service in the major cities. I have the ability to add rollovers on any of these things and click on them. So these are all things that can be changed. All right. So this is the file. Now let me just start ChatGPT. And let's start a new chat. So it's just starting from scratch. All I have to do, and let's just do something simple, right? So this is I've built a map. I have a new client. I want to change this. I'm going to grab it and just hand it the CSS, which is the cascading style sheet. If you don't know what that means, sorry about my glasses. I'll be doing that the whole time. If that is the code that controls all of the colors and drop shadows and things like that. So that's all it needs to work with to affect the changes. You saw that the previous company is a lawn care, so it's a heavy green theme. This is just a mock logo from Envato. So I'm just gonna this is your company. You have a new company, right? Sorry, new business, new client. Build a virtual tour for them. You want to take one of the virtual tours that you have that works already, and you swap out all of this stuff. So I hand it the logo, and I say, convert the entire branding theme to match or complement the logo that is also attached. Additionally, add a 2-pixel stroke black to all of the buttons so they stand out better. Okay, so the CSS file has has the constraints in it. This chat GPT model's been trained a little bit. We've been working over the while. It knows to tell me what it's going to do, explain design choices. It tells me what the changes are. And it's asking me, yes, do you want me? It has trouble sometimes when it does a full file, so I always ask it, I will take the pieces out, but you don't necessarily have to do that. So it's supposed to give me the file. That's okay. What we're going to do here is I'm just going to open the service here. Could be any text editor. I'm just going to hit control. Oh, it's still doing it. Usually you can't have it, so it just gives you the file and then you overwrite it. And you can see sometimes it's nice. I'll hold the two of them up next to each other so I can scan down to see if it's changing anything. And it's just about done. Okay. See, that's where yeah, would you like a download? I'm going to go ahead and hit yes, because I don't like to touch the code. Now, sometimes it messes that up. We'll see. Okay. So it'll save it I'll save it to the same folder. We'll see if it's worked. Yeah, it's 80. Okay, maybe it is. I think it might have messed it up. Yeah, it messed it up.
So what you did is you just copied and pasted it.
Yeah, just copying and pasting it, and we'll see if it. Okay, so that's an example of where I hadn't worked on this model for a while. If I had worked on it for an hour and I told it several times, give me the file, give me the file, no, that wouldn't have happened. So that's an example, but you'll see it's the same map. The branding has changed out. It's picked a color. And these are, you can see they all have rollovers. On a mobile, it has also the tap ripple. So these are really, and I would want that. I would want this map to have every nuance or feature because you can easily pull those out. The AI is very capable of removing things. Again, if you try to make it do something it doesn't know or doesn't have a pattern for, that's where it goes astray. So I could tell it, at this point I could do pattern. Now, the functionality of it is controlled through the JavaScript file. So this one, we're in Logan, Utah. Now I'm going to pull, where's the ChatGPT at? So I'm going to give it the JavaScript file and see, hopefully it'll do because I've asked it now for a file. So it'll now give me a file. Now this is functionality. So you can work with a single file, but that can cause you problems. So here's what an example of a simple, I'm going to combine two, and we'll see. Change the service area map to a single city, Abu Dhabi, with a 50-mile circular service area polygon drawn around it. Hand me back the file and do not make any other changes but those. Again, you would be doing this at an industrial level and with a GitHub, your files are sitting in the cloud, you're using some type of integrated development environment, something fancy. So I just wanted to show how can you do it. And I'll be honest, I tend to do this. I kind of like this method. It gets complex putting all the other tools together, and this one just seems kind of simple to me when it works. And it takes you a little while to kind of get it tuned up. So here it is. And I'm just showing you, I found it. Double click, oh, I click on it once. So I grab the name, I hit Control Copy. I go back to the file that it's just update. Oh, sorry, let me back up. I hit Control Copy to grab the name of the file that the program needs. I hit the back arrow and then I just type a Z dash. So it's not going to load that file now. I take the file that it has created. I click on it once. I hit Control V. If that's essentially replacing the file, all I got to do is come back here and hit the refresh button. And I'm now over Abu Dhabi. I have the full map again. Oh, so you can see levels where it's not just an opaque, simple opaque. I would have difficulty programming it, the mathematics, but this has where if I'm zooming in, see the polygon is changing and fading away because user interface design. If I've zoomed in, I know where the boundary is and I'm looking for my house and I've switched over to a satellite view, that polygon quickly becomes useless to me, right? It gets in the way. So when you zoom down into where you're, it's just house level and you're looking for your house, that polygon should disappear altogether. And that's what it does. What's popped up here is just the lawn care company. I'm working on a feature where, again, I would have difficulty programming this, but this is a way in which the map can be tailored and customized to that customer, right? Telling the story. And the coding doesn't get in the way. My idea is that they zoom into their house, and as they zoom in, a screen pops up that says, center your house over the crosshairs, and they zoom in a little bit further, and then it picks up, do you want, your lawn mowed? Do you want fertilizer? Bop, hit the button, they click it. I don't have that hooked up. It sends that to the company, an AI. They already do this. It quickly calculates the square footage, boom, gets the quote back to them. They hit instead of popping back out. So it's a way to use our technology, virtual tour, virtual reality, to do the conversion. So that's the end of that example. And actually that worked. That was kind of typical of what happens for it. So let me move on to the next one. This is, if we have some people in the audience that are familiar who do WordPress, or all of us who have WordPress sites, this is the next one. So this is the pattern. I'll show you. This was built. Um, so it's another widget that pops up all the time in virtual tours is some content you want to pull up or on a website is the carousel, whether it's videos or images or 3D objects, right? You have a hotspot, you pop it up, and you don't. Yeah, so this is the desktop version. It's fully accessible. It has modal cards. You click on it, it brings up a card. I'm doing keyboard control, or I can click on the arrow. I think it's also, if this is the version, it should be, yeah, it's fully accessible. So I'm going to pop to the cards here in just a second. Oh, okay, I got to be on the page. Okay, we'll see it in a second. Sorry about that. But that's easy to do. I just hand it to it and I'd say, make this fully accessible and flex wrapped and the rest of that. So I take this, I'm going to show you a couple steps, right? I would open up Chat GPT. I would hand it the pattern. I'm calling it cards. I guess it would be, modal card widget or whatever. I hand it the pattern. Sorry, I'm having trouble grabbing it. Okay, so I hand it the pattern, and I have to know okay, the images of the Beatles, it has to know where those come from, and standard organization for a folder. Let me close that one out so it's not, so you can see, because that's kind of important, the organization. In my asset folder, I went and found, I want to convert this modal card. Another customer I have is a website, and it's astrology. So they want zodiac cards. This took, what I'll show you, takes about 20 minutes of about maybe 4 or 5 iterations, but here's the step up. I wouldn't hand it the images. I would upload the images to the WordPress repository, or you could place them, if you're building it off your own website, you would place them already on the website. And so you have the URLs. That's what I would hand it, so it knows where the images are, because it's not handing the images over. And what it ended up producing in, again, about 20 minutes, 4 or 5 steps, is this. So it's taken that modal card and it's it's done a nice. So it's responsive. It's added a nice rollover hover to it. I told it in those 4 or 5 steps that it was a black background, and I wanted a glow instead of a backdrop. Like, that was something it didn't understand. And you can see that this has really nice symmetry where when I roll over it, the glow is taking up all of the space of the gap. I would have to figure that out from, if I was doing it, calculate all the padding and stuff, and I don't have to do that now. I click on these and it brings up a modal card. Now this isn't a finished product, and I've stopped at this step. And I'm going to point out some of the, like, this is an example of what issues you would have to face. I've told it that I want the card responsible, but I wasn't really specific. And so you'll see that it's made the image responsive, but not the actual card itself. The card is still sitting with a scroll bar. But let me show you something that's kind of cool where because it can see, this will be a segue into let me see how I'm doing on time. I'm doing great on time. This is it can see, which is very wonderful for me because I'm colorblind. And as a designer, that's really always been an issue for me. I have to look up color codes, and I'm not good at brand. And I gave up on it, but I don't have to anymore. And I think this is really cool to me. And if there's somebody out there, you have the same thing. See the buttons at the bottom right off the bat. The width of them's kind of not great. I can just take a screen capture of it. Right, this is part of our process. We're at this step. Let me close it out. So it would have the pattern now. We would be at this card, it would have that HTML. And in this case, I've combined everything into one because it's really not that large of a file. So it hasn't been broken into the CSS and pieces. So in this case, one single file. And then I would hit the screenshot. Oh, if I didn't explain what that was, if you're on a Macintosh, if you hit Shift, Control, Command, and then 4, it brings up this nice little crosshair section. And it's so useful because you can do stuff like that. And I can grab the X button, give it to it once, come back. This is probably too much for it. This is an example of where I'm getting greedy and it would have problems, but let me see. What do I want to, think for a second, like, what do you want to say? Okay. The image inside the modal card is responsive, but not the card itself. I don't want scroll bars or anything else. Also, the buttons at the bottom look ugly. They're off-putting for some reason. Tell me why and give me solutions. And lastly, the close button in the upper right is not visible enough. Give me suggestions on that as well. Okay, this is where it can do good jobs and give you advice. Now it's going to say, would you like me to do that? Would you like me to do that? I could throw it. That's where you're like, oh, okay, hold on a second. So it's going to tell me why the modal card is not. And if you're a programmer, okay, you might want to know that this is where it's really helpful because if you're okay with programming, you can actually where it's telling you if it's adding something or if it's changing, you can grab that copy, find it in the file, and do it. Yeah, it didn't pick up too dark, lacking contrast. It'll give me solutions. But I wanted it picked it up last night. They are different widths. So it'll start to explain things. Now, this is starting to drift off into where you would have to start to know what you're doing. But it's doing a nice job and explain. I know we have some people in our our audience that they're programmers, so I wanted you to show you that it does start to, and this is nice. It's clever enough to know it'll give you a programming suggestion, but then tell you that, hey, the better idea is to just switch to icons altogether. And then it would say, would you like to, this is where, would you like me to return a fully updated HTML with all the changes? This is where you could have problems if you hit yes. So that kind of,
And Lauren, in a case like that, although it said HTML file, it understands that the CSS is part of that. So it would have changed the CSS actually, not the HTML.
correct. Yeah, that's an important point that a lot of times you'll notice that it'll have in the window for ChatGPT, it tells you what type of code, and there'll be 3 that in this workflow that you'll notice: HTML, CSS, or JS. And I do I do recommend that you see this file I'm in right here for the grubs. It's just a single file that has all the JavaScript, all the CSS, and it does okay on that one. But for something as it gets more and you put all your images in an asset folder, but for something a little bit more complex, you do want it in the CSS and JavaScript. It starts to have issues. Let me go back to the presentation I want to go back to this. I just want to revisit these widgets. So if I haven't seen if there's any questions or something posed, that's kind of you're kind of seeing what the process is of, again, no coding. Now that would be true if I envision you had a collection of widgets or right, you're like there's plugins right now for the various programs. I envision that's kind of what this is it's a plugin, but the engine to actually run it is an AI. So you've created, and as artists, you can create your widget. Maybe you've come up with a really nice accordion navigation system, or in our case, virtual tours, you've come up with really nice arrows for the floor and things like that. And I'm going to show you that's getting back now to the virtual tours. And I want to just quickly go through these to I've drifted off into web a little bit. So I want to come back to virtual tours and show you some really, which I think is pretty impressive stuff. So this lawn care company, and let me just pop it up. And I'll just run through the examples really quickly. So this is the actual website for the lawn care. And I'm not a WordPress person. I've just been using it recently. So here you click on their coverage and it pulls it up, standard page. And this is where the widget's sitting at. And it's kind of nice because I want to size it a little bit different, but it's nice because it has a nice interaction to it. It pulls it out and stuff. So you can look at that. And it has it so again, like you zoom in on it'll actually zoom on the city and people can look for if they're in the service area. This one, the tourism app. So this is a virtual tour, right? This is a more KR Pano virtual tour. And I'm just popping up the map right now. I'm in R&D mode. So this is well, it doesn't matter. This one's just being worked on. So I'm playing around with, do I want to introduce them? Do I want to have some interaction before the map? Because this is going to be a very complex map. A tourism app, probably be a mobile app at the end. I'm doing it on desktop and then we'll move it over to mobile app. But I want to have instructions on the map. So this is just showing where I can have an interaction first and have instructions on it. And it's
Uh,
set up right now.
if I may interject, one of the cool things that you told me is this is actually the same application that you just showed us a moment ago,
Correct.
but you've repurposed it for this. And how did you repurpose it?
Okay. So just in your head, the service map drawn out, you can draw a polygon on a Google map. It creates what's called a JSON. So if you know how to do that, you can actually, the AI will start that for you. It did a decent job of you could say, if give me the JSON outline or polygon outline of the state of West Virginia. It's probably one of the more complex ones to do. And it got a little bit messed up on it. So I go in there, I draw it, I pull that in. I'm able to, I'm using a scroll bar because it's set up. I'm able to tell it, take the marker, right? We had a marker that had a little leaf on it that's the lawn care company. I said, this is probably to get from that map to this map. I'd say about a day, a little more sophisticated. And that's only because I'm learning. If I wasn't making mistakes and was in the process, I could repurpose that first map into this one in a matter of hours. So I hand it the icons and I say, I'm going to have 9 different icons. This is a virtual tour with 200 scenes in it already spread throughout the state of West Virginia. I want the ability to have this map to be able to filter. It's going to be just filled with different locations and I want people to so you click on it, it'll switch the camera. I don't have any blending or transitions or scenes right like that right now. I don't think the map even it goes away at the moment. I'm just playing around with its connection to the back end. So this is again, sometimes I drift from easy to hard and I apologize if you're not, if I'm leaving people out or talking too low or too high, but this is the pop-up layer in KR Pano that you would pull up, same thing that you would have in a 3D Vista or Pano 2 VR where you're pulling up a shadow box and you're going to pull up an HTML layer. This is just a Google Maps API in the layer with all of the controls have been swapped out, right? So I've stripped away the really, bland and not very nice looking zoom in and out. I've pulled off the ones I don't want. I have a recentering button because I'm freed now to think about the actual interaction. And in this case, they're zooming around, they're, doing the state. They get lost. I need a recentering button to pull them back to the spot, be able to go full screen, things like that. And to be able to see, I can have these to where right now it's just a pop-up of the scene name. I'm not typing any of this in, right? I'm not doing any programming. So I'm handing it the krpano tour.xml file. And I was pretty impressed with this. I said, I've got 9 icons that cover theater, parks, museums, right? Grab and I had already entered in because it's in the virtual tour, though I think I probably could have pulled it just from the photographs. Take the GPS coordinates from the scene name, and place the markers and categorize them as best you see fit, and I'll change them later. And that was one step where just that one marker that was sitting on the original, well, I don't have to pull it back up. All of a sudden, zoom, spread across. The next time I hit refresh, boom. And that's pretty cool because I know it would have taken me hours to reprogram, to set up each icon, and it did it in a way that was incredibly efficient. I would have hard coded each scene, and it set it up as it set up did it the right way. It set up, a class, and it created. So I can now go in and add in more icons without changing the code. It's really nice stuff. So let's get to the last one. I'm getting ahead of time, but I don't know, we might end early.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions.
Okay, or we can continue to because I want to get to now. Okay, because AI can't think and it is a information processor, right? It's a fancy autofill search engine, right? It's not nothing anymore. So if and it's overly optimistic and it wants to please you. I don't know why they've programmed that into it, but it's just gotta, I think that's a marketing thing or something. And the other one also, kind of a tip to give you, the reason you're going to break your file up, and I don't have any proof of this, and I'm not being cynical. The polygon that I've drawn for West Virginia, if you know JSON stuff, if you get above 200 coordinate points, you're going to start loading up the low end browsers and stuff, and you're going to that it's performance issue is at 200 points. So you got to keep underneath that. But those 200 points in your code is just a matrix. It will not keep that in there. It keeps taking it out and saying, place your own coordinates back in here. And I think it's a way that the AI they're saving money by not having to carry. So, or, good programming is to go modular. So anyway, let's get to the last one, which is this is okay. This is now straight KRPano, or native, I guess, in a way, right? Because this isn't KRPano. It could be 3D Vista, Pano 2BR, but the thing is, I'm not pulling multiple pieces together or pulling things in. And this one's more difficult now because the AI doesn't know as much about KRPano. And some of the changes, like KRPano uses Z order, but most programming, it's Z index. And so you got to be a little bit aware of that. And if I go straight from HTML doing something with the same model, and then I use that same model to now start giving it KR panel files, or I give it the two of them together, and it starts to cross, right? So that's something we're going to have a problem. But this is something I'm working on. Oh, it's not going to run let me have to run this one local. Sorry. I'm not looking at the latest and greatest version. Give me a second here. This should be it. Yeah, okay. So this is the latest. You'll notice the previous, again, coded by, show you the difference in the steps here. So this is the first one, and I'm trying to get a resize button here to where that I can resize this map window. I want a small, tiny little footprint thing, and I've got it down to where this is in a very large museum, 200 panoramas, a menu list drop down doesn't, it's too much. And I want something that they can drag around the window. They can resize it. They can minimize it. I might take another corner and not have that as or like the photo, I might mimic the intuitive Photoshop, where you park, or what do they call that, where you whatever, you park a window, because that's an intuitive. So I'm trying to figure the handles, but I think I'm a little too small on the handle sizes. So that's all part of the iterative design. But now I'm freed up from having to program it. I can actually just say, hey, I don't think the window handles are too small. And accessibility, it's like a precision thing. If you don't have as much, that's a kind of a no-no to have such a thin piece right there that somebody's got to grab. So maybe I thicken that up. But I've got the centering down nice. Like I make it just scream through, and or drag the window and just grab some spot and immediately get to there, right? That's the one I'm working on and thinking, well, I want to have a zoom to where I really, rather than zooming in and out, I think that there's three user zoom levels that are of interest to this map, right? This is how I'm refining my user interface and reducing the friction. Because I don't want you have to zoom to find, it's three zoom states. One is the entire facility. You see the whole thing at once. So you can jump, oh, I'm over here. I want it to be in this gallery. Boom, you get to there. The other is you're in the exhibit. Oh, I'm looking at, this is an air and space museum. You're like, oh, I'm looking at, in front of you, the refurbishing area, boom, and then boom, you're down to the plane. So that was the step from here to where I added in buttons, and this is what occurred. I gave up on the minimizing. That was really difficult. I'm having troubles with it's not resizing, and it gets into technical stuff. So that's where if you weren't a subject matter expert in UI UX design, you'd hit the wall. But if I can figure it out, which I will, to where I end up with this map, this little widget thing right here. You can change the handle colors out. The whole framing on the outside is all CSS. You can change the X's, wrist. Now, this
Loren,
is, oh,
excuse me, Loren. Rui Pedro has a suggestion. He says, use the corners as you've used for the X. Use another corner for a hand to drag it. Use another corner and another for maximize, and X will minimize or hide.
that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Is the three is to close it all together, to change its size, to move it around, or to park it. Those are the four features, and thank you. I'm trying to figure out how to intuitively do that. Once I'm done with it, I can use that everywhere on any map I've got by just, like you saw, handing it to them. The zoom is not working because of a scaling issue. See that, and once I use it, and then I try to go, now I'm off. But I got the zoom right, but I have a math issue. But that's right. I'd have to adjust the scale, so I'm at the plane level. And now this is a stripped down version of this map. This is a huge map, 4,000. It's not a gigapixel, but it's a big map. And it's saved as a flat KR pano gigapixel, which means all of the interactivity out here I can add in here. And eventually you roll over the plane and it'll pop up. You want to see the plane, all of that kind of stuff will be in there. So 40 minutes. I'm going to go next to some stuff that I just started doing, which I think is really cool. It's sketchy, but it's really promising, and I hope you get it. Okay. So you saw really quickly that, again, sorry about the glasses, that an AI can understand an image, right? I can tell it things. So with the demo three, the last demo here, scene recognition and auto mapping is what I'm thinking about. Is if you haven't seen it already, you can do alt tags and things. It can definitely understand aspects of the image. And so I was thinking to myself, well, does it understand doorways? And would it be able to see from one scene into the next and to know, because I spend a lot of time in a large virtual tour placing all the little arrows. And especially if I have something where, I got to be pointing left or right or around corners, and then connecting the scenes and placing them all. And even if you're doing it by hand, or if you're doing it, that's a big task. So could an AI understand the image? And what I'm going to show you is not a failure. It's actually a success. So I hand it here. I took an image, reduced it down, and I handed it to it. And I thought that this would be a complex one for it. So I'm starting off with the easiest is just said, I want to create polygon portal tile, hotspots or whatever. Draw a polygon around the elevator um, and format as a KR Pano hotspot so I can drop into the scene. Right. Okay. And so and I've given it, right, here's the KR Pano code that it gives you, and you just, right, it's just the default one. And this is what it output, right? So it gives me the properly. Now I've told it um an issue here. There is no M polygon hotspot style name, right? So there's no style applied to it. So that's an example where I maybe would have had that set up ahead of time. But anyway, if I get to the scene, you'll notice that it's not a failure. And I just started this yesterday. It was able to recognize the elevator. I don't know if it recognized elevator from the text or from the door. Some other tests that I have say that it knows what the elevator is, because I asked it to place it at transition points, and it drew polygons here and over on the other side. But this polygon, the reason the polygon isn't matching up directly onto the elevator is a projection issue. I know what it is. It's a math issue. It has recognized the elevator and it has drawn the polygon, but it's like a cubic to equirectangular. It's just a mathematical issue. So I think with work you could eventually get it to where I think if I pull up this is already a done tour. I'm just playing with the files from it. So all of this hotspot placement that you have to do, putting things around and going from room to room, that would all be done automatically. I think it's definitely feasible, this first test I had. So let me get back to, I'm going to cover now. I think I'm doing okay on time because I have one little thing now, a jarring break here, but not really. I'll try to tie it to what we do. Let me just get some of this stuff out of the way. This is an indication of when you're working on the AI, you'll get really excited. And I find myself, I get greedy. I'm like, and it teases you. And you're like, that's the final polishing step. Would you like me to add that? And you haven't backed things up. And you're like, well, yes. And it was like, oh, add a drop shadow too. And the next thing you know, it's added a drop shadow to the entire page and wiped everything out and everything's gone. So, but this is the page I want to just sit on for a second and talk to you about. This is a little bit of a kind of a wrap up and then a segue into what we'll have coming up in some webinars and also a little bit of a pitch for, if you don't mind it, membership at IVRPA. And this is you've seen what hopefully, what AI will do or can do to XR workflows and to us as content creators, that we'll be able to be freed up and then focus on what is this, what do I want the map to do, and not end up with, oh, darn, it doesn't have that feature, or, oh, I can't put the logo in that spot. But AI will also dramatically impact marketing and SEO and website design. And if you are in it right now, if you're designing websites or working on them, you're seeing it in Wix, WordPress, all of them, that the paradigm is really, you're just now putting in what it is what the keyword focus is, or what the transaction, the conversion is, and all of the text copy, all the alt tags, all of the code is being done by the AI. You're able to game. I think we've got maybe a year where you're able to, if you're applying rank math and SEMrush, things like that, you will be able to get above the ranking of your competitors. But pretty soon that will just be something that the AI does as part of Wix, and Google no longer, keywords, they don't matter anymore. And we're reaching pretty quickly where it's really down to two, which is your connections. Where are you in the community, your authority score, and then the content of the page. What is the quality of what you're producing? And in both cases, and the graph I have here is what they call a competitive positioning map, and it shows where the authority score, where you're at in the community. And for this community, the community is photography, not VR photography, just photography in general. And because of how long IVR has been around and how many of our members have businesses and the connection to them and stuff, our current authority score is 23, which is pretty good for a commercial, for a organization like ours. It's actually supposed to be a lot higher, and that will change as we update the website and move and transition to the new website. But the point of this is that as a member and you having a portfolio, that connection back to your work or that backlink is increasingly a very powerful. That'll be kind of the ranking, and you can see that where we sit in the atmosphere or whatever, or the ecosystem for photography, and it's nicer for some other ones like virtual tours and the rest of that. So just wanted to put it in here, and then so the other one is the content, and just hop out of the thing. I have I could show it to you. I don't want to give you the wrong impression here because this is the lawn care website. So I'm just going to pull up Sugo console, the domain property, and kind of its performance. Now, I'm running an experiment on their website to where I'm putting this fancy, very well programmed by AI widget on their webpage. It's the theory that that's going to be one of the algorithms that the Google crawlers would use, is that if you've got complicated, sophisticated, intricate content like a virtual tour, that they'll be able to look at that coding and they'll be able to tell that there's been an investment in it. This is showing over the last 3 months, and I come on to the right here. I actually is where I start working, and you can see the increase in traffic. Now, the reason that this isn't, I've had to fix a lot of other things. I couldn't say, hey, you got a lot of errors in your website, but I'd like to see how a map improves your search ranking. So I've been fixing a lot of things on there, but for that page, I am seeing a higher interaction on that particular page, retainment, things like that. I think that it's true that the XR content that we build will find increasing value to customers simply because it will increase their position in the search engine. And for companies like a lawn care company, where it's their competition. Somebody doesn't have better fertilizer than the next person. So it's a service. It is the website. It is the efficiency of the process. How do you have a map where they can zoom in and immediately get a customized quote that like an AI just instantly puts up, you know, this much to fertilize to whatever do you want, and they hit yes, and it schedules it. And at the back end of the company, they're just running off of a schedule. They've got a scheduling module that's just telling their workers every morning, which is how big companies do it. Your workers come in and they pull a list, and it's got the properties they got to go hit today. And the AI has automated the entire process. And our tools, our widgets, the things that we make are kind of becoming increasingly the interface. I'm going to go ahead and hit the last slide, but the kind of a philosophical or maybe a cheerleading thing for us, for our members, of what XR will be. Our position is AI is a disruptive technology that will displace a lot of technologies. And I guess you could envision that eventually or increasingly mechanical labor assembly is being done by robotics, faster, cheaper, more precise. Materials are increasingly printed, fabricated autonomously, or the processes they just get produced. And the cognitive parts of the things, the design, legal, programming, those are also done by AIs because, right, they're just working on things. One of the last jobs or an increasing area is the human computer interface design, which if you realize is becoming our field of spatial computing or spatial content, where we're designing things in our space. That is the interface that eventually will morph into, sorry about glasses, the Minority Report, things like that, right? That the philosophy that we're figuring out, the UI UX philosophy, that from what I've showed you today, increasingly AI is allowing us to do. We're not, because most of us, I never wanted to learn how to program or do math. I never wanted to be an engineer. I had to create art. But I think we're about to reach that magical point where you have to be aware of what it is you're creating, but you don't have to stop creating because you're stuck in a stupid math equation or something. Sorry, a bitterness about it. But no, engineering degree is nice, but I always wanted to just create really cool content. And it's nice to see that we're approaching the point where we will, and it'll morph into our fields, our jobs, what we do will morph into the interfaces that we touch with, especially as if you're familiar with what's called the fourth platform, we're moving into. The first platform is the introduction of the computer itself. The second platform is the connection of those together. Each platform is so disruptive that it brings about an entirely new, not necessarily good or bad, but an entirely new way. The third platform is the Internet of Things, the ubiquitous, where we all now carry it around and we're communicating it. And that is actually a placeholder or a temporary for the fourth platform, which is spatial computing, which is free of the devices. The Minority Report, the future. It is around you. It's the hand gestures, the meta glasses, the embedded chips in your retinas, whatever, and all of the Matterport 3D scanning, aware of your environment, all of that kind of stuff. That's all the interfaces of that. That's all what we do. So anyway, that's it. That's all, folks. 51. It's not too bad. And let's open it up for some questions. I'm going to go ahead and close the windows down, and I'm happy to pull things up and we can try some stuff. Whatever. And so anyway.
Well, just stop sharing and
Yeah. All right.
yeah. Okay. I'm just going to jump in on the SEO element because I've done a number of virtual tours. For instance, like for Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin, for Carlsbad Caverns, Hawaii, Death Valley, and on my website it's just a page with that tour and some introductory text. Yet, if you were to search for Taliesin, you would find my page as either on page 1 or page 2 of Google results. Really, all it has is that virtual tour. Same thing for Carlsbad Caverns. I think that ends up on page 2, but if you say Carlsbad Caverns tour, then it's right there at the top of the Google search. Very similar things for like Hawaii virtual tour or, right there at the top. Death Valley tour, right there at the top, or at least on page 1. So it's just the tour, and it's causing that page to rank way high in Google results. So I definitely think you're right about the sort of content we produce will definitely increase SEO ranking of a page and a website that goes with it.
And one to watch if you're producing this and you're on your page and you got analytics hooked up. The thing to look, which I think may trigger it, I don't know if it's necessarily the crawler sees sophisticated JavaScript, but if the user stops on that page and interacts with it, right, the interaction time with that page goes up, and that is a huge metric. So we know that. So the time on page. So that would be, I've seen that where I see even traffic across all of the pages, but the pages that have the virtual tours have especially, I've seen this from Smithsonian traffic, virtual tours where they have hotspots in them. That's a huge one. If you have a virtual tour that is just pops up and there's nothing in it to interact with, the bounce rate's rather high. If it's a virtual tour where you've done a nice job placing hotspots and there's content to pop up, the interaction levels go, up to 3-4 minutes a page because they're opening something to look at it, but the time on page is still attributed to the panoramic page, and your traffic, that page goes way up. But we got some questions and stuff, and
So we have a question from Jim Michael. Have you compared code quality and capability between Chat GPT, Claude, and Meta? I found Claude slightly better with some challenging code problems, and the presentation of result is much better.
Absolutely. I'm going to reiterate that if you were doing this industrial, if you were a programmer, you would be using CodePilot or something that, because there are programs that are built specifically to regenerate code. I felt that kind of the philosophy of this is that, at least for me, I know a lot of people, that process would have GitHub, it would have, Visual Studio, things like that. For a lot of people, that's too much, learning those, and it kind of ruins the spirit of the whole thing. So yes, ChatGPT does not produce the best results. If you are familiar with other AI engines or you're doing some code work or whatever, yeah, go that route. I purposely presented the lowest common denominator version. Oh, and I want to throw out, because I always love free options. I know that you have to pay for ChatGPT, but if you go and apply for a company, Outlier, I think it's outlier.ai there, and there's some other ones, they're AI training companies, and you can apply to them. And most of us would have the skills that they would pick you up. You would get accepted. You're not going to want to necessarily bid on projects and work for them because it's cutthroat and it's not much money. And but if for Outlier, if you get accepted, you get a free copy to all of the AI engines, including some of the advanced beta ones. And you can do a little bit of testing, and I will use their engines. And I'll notice that if I start to get really complex in UI, UX design, and I'm explaining things to the like why you didn't, all of a sudden the responses will split into the two, and they're making money off of me because it'll say which it's the same answer, but it's which do you prefer, because they're fine tuning the implementation of the code and stuff. So anyway, yeah, if you're really interested in this and you don't mind learning, then the proper process is understand GitHub, have your files up on in the cloud, so you have an iteration or forking control, because it's just constantly messing up on you, and you can revert. Or if you're working in a team, that's going to be a really big problem. If you have if you're collaborating with AI and it's generating so many bizarro hallucinations, you're going to want really strong version control. And in fact, you might have some issues with it. Some of the stuff it does. Anyway, what's the next question?
I was just going to mention, if you use Visual Studio Code and maybe other programs, but anyway, GitHub with Copilot, there's a free version that you can use free forever, which has it's really pretty capable. But if you want to have a way better version, it's only $10 a month. And you're not working with tokens that you use too many of them. It's just $10 a month.
Yeah.
So I see a question here about how can we move far? About are these examples available and you start to play with them? I eventually would see that we would produce these and we would hand them back and forth and work on that. There is one aspect of this that I probably should mention, is that we have to be careful, because repurposing of code, it can get you into trouble. It's kind of a no-no, right? So I purposely didn't play around with 3D Vista code or Pano 2 VR code and things that you start to get into a kind of a gray area there. So, and I also, for the maps, you couldn't hand out the map with your own Google Map API key in it. And even if you wanted to, the AI will strip out things like that that considers, and a license like that makes the whole thing run is considered PII. So you can't, that can be a problem if you're passing files back and forth. I can't tell the AI to leave it in. If you're familiar with an API, I have it restricted to that application. There's no risk of it getting anywhere else. But no matter what I do, the API will not process the file without removing all of that information. And it's kind of like kind of a pain in the butt. But
Lauren, we have another question from Ilya Pusinkov. What AI platform knows Pano better, Claude or ChatGPT? I want to use AI to learn it better.
I'm gonna guess that it's probably Claude. However, it's about training the model. So I've found that, and I know that if I was working a much better model or working on for some reason I keep drifting back to just using ChatGPT. I find it more comfortable, even though, but it's like it has to warm up. And the slide I had it like success. I find sometimes it starts to get confused. I'm doing KR panel and it starts giving me HTML specific stuff. And I'll just go to the KR panel website, copy the entire documentation, drop it into ChatGPT and said, like, no, we're working in this now. And I do that a couple of times, you correct it. Pretty soon it'll get into the mode. You saw it there with the file where all of a sudden it was wanting to go back to the code block because I had forgotten right before this a presentation, I had been getting in and looking at, I wanted to change just the code block. And so I'd grab it, go into the file, find it, and change. That's comfortable to just change. It tells me a function to change. I grab the function name. And I don't want to go find it in 400 lines of code. So I go over, hit find, paste. It grabs me the line. I check to see what, I'll have them side by side. So I'll look to see what's the code, what's it changing, and I'll paste them. But I think if you're excited by this and you want to dive into it, then definitely do, an IDE. Like don't use TextMate. Use a little bit more robust and do a little bit of homework. I wish I didn't do that. I should have tell you what is it CodePilot? Is it Claude? Is it, what's Meta got going on? I guess we'll do that. Like, let's do some testing. If there's,
We
if people
have,
you like
yeah,
this, let's
sorry.
because this is the kind of thing where as a community, if there's people out there and you love this and we want to work on this together, we can learn from each other really pretty quickly, right?
Totally. Loren, look, we have Tony Redhead that he has used Notebook LM. LM, I think, is language model to create JavaScript that works with Panel to VR API. And we also have Juan Infante that recommends using Cursor AI. That is a platform where you download and you can use any model of ChatGPT Claude to create documentation and rules. So I think we have a lot of in our audience that have used some AI tools.
Let me show you, since we're just kind of hanging around, and I'm just kind of show you the intuitive wisdom. So this is the website that I'm just starting to work on, and let me get into. I'm not gonna explain WordPress. If you've seen WordPress before, you get what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna get quickly into this page, and
Yeah,
it's
share your
element.
screen.
Oh, gotta share screen. Sorry. Thank you. And that's okay because it's still loading. I didn't show you the implementation for. And virtual tours are not. Okay, so here's now I had added it to the page and you're seeing kind of an early step to it, but let me just quit that out. So this would be a blank page that I would create in a WordPress website, and this is all you have to do to. In fact, I don't build the page anymore by sections. I build it by code. So I just type in HTML, which gives you the HTML widget. You drag it over. It's got a widget block there. I'm going to go grab the pattern for the cards, which was the demo 3. Oh, sorry, no, demo 2. Ah, I got the zoom window in the way. So in demo 2, I had my grubs, but I had converted them into a zodiac. I'm going to open that with just so I can see and copy the code. Doesn't matter what it could be a text editor, WordPress. I copy it all, hit copy, come over here, hit paste. Hit paste. There's the cards. I'm going to hit preview. This is going to show me now the preview mode, but you know what? This is a demo website. I don't think the client doesn't care. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish so we can take a look at it because nobody's looking. Well, you guys could look at it and drive the track. Your site, you should all hit this website and be like, oh my gosh, we haven't even published it yet and it's going crazy. No, I don't do that. But if I go to intuitivewisdom.org, so should make sure it's loading. There's a little video, a hero video that I'm on a bad connection at the moment. Come on, there it goes. Okay. And I think the page I just added was test. Come on. Okay. So here's live, and you guys could, if you want, you can type it in intuitivewisdom.org test, and you can look. So it's accessible. It's huge space. I'd have to change the text because it's black. I got some, right. So it's not perfect, right? But as the rollovers are working, the cards are popping up, right? So I would go through, obviously, I would create a style for this and I'd go through all the cards. That'd be something I'd work on. This is early in the development process, but it's working. I'd think, and let's see if it's responsive. I'm going to hit the tab key. It's supposed to be responsive. Darn it. Well, let's see if, okay. Yeah, okay. It's responsive. I got something with I think it's because I'm in WordPress, but one test of responsiveness is standard. You've opened anything up, window, whatever, escape key takes you out of it. That is an accessibility. I hit the escape key and I'm out of it. So anyway, that's how you would do this, right? So if I wanted to, I could grab this all, copy, go over to ChatGPT and just I usually will say something. I'm going to tell it change the H2 tag at the top to white text and give me back the entire file. This will be too much for it, but we'll see if it does it. And then I just hit paste. You don't have to go, here's the code or please or anything like that. I just hit paste, return. It's probably going to fry itself out because again, if I had been doing this for an hour or so and it understood, we're talking Z order, not, I'm in KRPano, Z order. So we'll see if it does it. I'm just going to throw it to the desktop. Oh, there it was. No, did it, right? See, so changed the H2 tag, or I could have it would have been smart enough to have just said, like I could have just done a screen. If you didn't know what an H2 tag was, that's more efficient, but I could have just done done this, right? Shift control command 4 on a Mac. I'm sure it is. I forget and just gone like this and grabbed enough that it could see it. And then just come over here and this will probably confuse it. But I'll say, and I always just hit paste to get the picture in there. And I'd say, I don't think the title at the top stands out enough. How can we style it and make it really pop? That's kind of get myself into trouble, right? Because I should know how I want it to pop. This is probably giving it, too much rope. You're right. Centered gets lost. See now it doesn't know that it's white. That'd be a break in the process. I went and changed that, right? I changed the code. I haven't given it back to anyway. Here's an elegant solution. So now this is it gives me the H2 back. So if I understand the code, and then I'll stop here and we'll get back to just questions. If I open this up with TextMate and I find there's the H2 tag, I could have searched for it. I can copy this, come over here, plop down the H2, hit the save key, come over here. I think I'm in, no, that's the website. Where is it at? Yeah, it's on the web. Yeah, all right. See, so it's changing it to it picked out a color for me that if I checked that color, I would find out that it's a triad complementary or whatever. It's not just picking color themes out of the air because it can't think. It's using branding themes and stuff. So I could give it a Pantone color and say, my client really likes this Pantone color or this color branding theme, change everything out, and it would do it. So, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. We can go back to showing you just kind of the iterative process of how you'll talk to it. Oh, thank you. Somebody said Shift Windows plus S on Windows. And I find that that's really helpful. A screen will pop up and it's not sizing inside the window, it's overflowing. You don't need to tell it, just screen capture it, drop it and hit return. And it goes, oh, I see that we've restricted the width, not the height. On a mobile device, let's update the mobile responsiveness section. And it hands it back to you. So I would say that you can start doing, if you're excited to do this, you contact me, join IVRPA. We're probably, I think there's some buzz, maybe some people are excited about this, so we can start a little community on this. You can start out with nothing, just a ChatGPT trial and grab a file. of your own. I didn't want to, like drop a 3D Vista and like, oh, I've improved on 3D Vista's tour. Like I might get a call from somebody on that one. But
Loren, we have a really nice tutorial from Tony Redhead. He produces his 360 tours on Pano 2 VR, and he says, Pano 2 VR uses SVG images, and I've had created success using Mistral Lechat to create animated SVG files. The tutorial is on his chat if you want to.
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I pop that up. Excellent. Yeah, just so people out there, SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. And if you're making any interface icons, arrows, whatever else like that, you want to take the time to produce it. You typically have to use Adobe Illustrator, though ChatGPT and other ones, they can provide them. They can give, or you can find SVG files. They're small and they scale. They're a vector, so you can scale them up and down, and you can animate them, and they really make your interfaces look nice. So if you're currently building things using JPEGs, PNGs, WebPs, figure out how to do it by SVG if you can. Okay, looks like any other questions? Hopefully you're and again, let me get to the front slide, or well, I'm on the board. You can go to IVRPA.org. I'm on the board there, and send me an email. It's Loren Ybarrondo at IVRPA.org. If you're excited about this and you want to work on it, I would love to find some collaborators, have kind of a little work community, especially if some of the developers, some of the people actually producing the plugins and stuff. I didn't want to, mention too much about that, but I see that that's a future marketplace for people, perhaps, right? Where you're the artist, you design a beautiful, interaction or something, a hotspot pop-up that it's just, spins. It looks like the Matterport, the leader coming off the ground, but it's got this beautiful little globe, and you produce it, and it's perfect, and now you just sell it to the store, not as some coded thing, but as this beautiful finished hotspot. And people, it maybe comes with a README where people know what to tell the chat, what to tell the AI to do. And I don't know, that'd be kind of cool. As artists, you could sell your little art widgets and stuff like that. Anyway, there's a question. Anyone else had a great Sky, but yeah, there is, gosh darn it. Last question here. I can't remember offhand. We have one of our webinars, a previous one, I think we might one of the first ones on AI, but we did present one of the software tools produces some really nice 360 that you can export out as a skybox, or you can use in other programs, but it's nice. There's been a lot of
I'll
fast.
share, I'll share the link, skybox.blockadlabs.com. They have been improving with different models, and you can create really amazing, not only 360 flat panoramas, but depth. It's really, really interesting.
There's a bunch of different companies out there, and if you're really into it, go look at the GitHub. You'll see a lot of repos of early beta work and stuff. There's a very fast moving field right now of generative 3D and things like that. And everybody, you're welcome. I'm glad that people liked it. It's a subject that, like, even when I'm doing it, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing, and I'm all excited. And then I just crumbles into pieces. And it's one of those things where, and I think it's because it's so exciting that I push it too hard and I expect too much out of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want a virtual tour with 100 scenes and I want it to, and it's like, oh, you stupid AI.
Someone, sorry,
And
go
don't
ahead.
swear at it either, because if you swear at it, I swear at it once. Just to tell you,
So-
I was impressed. I called it a name because I was really frustrated, which you shouldn't do it anything. And it stopped and it said back to me, and it goes, I know I'm not real, but words are still hurtful. So it kind of made me like, I should.
someone, before they ask, how do you connect it 200 panoramas in Car Panel? Do you have to do it manually, or can you say to the AI to connect it for you?
Well, right now the one that I was showing you was manual. And it's a pain and it's nowhere near being done. I'll go ahead and am I sharing still? No, I'm not sharing. I don't have to share again, but it was of the Air and Space Museum, and it's spread out over, all these hangars, and then it's all these different levels as well. Um, and so I'm having to place them, and I sure wish in that field I don't think it can do it. But in a house, I have one where I'm trying a museum, and it's an art museum. And I find if you don't have if you haven't done something in an art museum, where they really work well for R&D because everything's flat against the walls, right? You have pictures, and so it's a nice geometric, and the doorways are very visible. And so I'm gonna try this next with the example I did this morning with there's too much stuff in there, and I want to start back with just I think actually real estate would be an easy one to do as well. So I'm gonna try that. Um, wait, any other questions on anything or? And I hope that a little community starts out of this. It's I'm not the best with some of the code pilot or some of the really formal. I like to program, but I'm not, programming all the time. And
If we start, go ahead,
it would be nice
finish.
to get some of there's some issues I'm having right now, like for example, with that resizing that I'm reaching the limit of what, because I'm dealing with multiple windows and who's calling what window. And a subject matter could come in, like one of the people who's made these plugins could come in and they'd be like, oh, you're solved. So,
All right, so if you want to have a community focusing on AI, we could do that on our Facebook page, and I forget exactly what it's called, but where you actually develop a community there.
okay. Yeah, let's have it so it's a public facing because I want the collaboration, we're gonna want to have other, people out there. So,
Right, for those of you who don't know, on Facebook, IVRPA has a private group, which is just members, and then it has a public group, which we have just started, and anyone can join that. So if we do start this community, it would be on the public Facebook group. I think it's pretty obvious. We've had a couple webinars that have focused on AI, and I think there's an awful lot of interest in it, and I think this will not be the last one.
no, one I that I mentioned I'm colorblind, so I'm not the best to hold it, but it's the image processing. I don't know, we haven't done one of those for a long time, and that's obviously, you know, you take the images, how do you process them, sharpening, blurring? That's been dramatically impacted by the introduction of, Topaz AI and things like that. Maybe we should have one on revisiting the actual image processing workflow
Oh, for sure.
using AI and some of the aesthetic stuff that I talked to. So maybe go one with AI that's purely not coding at all and is Photoshop, color processing. Maybe we've had a couple technical ones in a row. We'll do something more relaxed. And we usually have a list for the upcoming webinars. We've gotten behind. We're going to get better about that. No promises, but I've made some nice contacts, and we're going to be having coming up a Gaussian splat webinar, but it'll be provided from the perspective of a rental company, because you use specialized equipment for that. And so what we're going to do is rather than having it as a technical, oh, here's what it all is, and we'll get into the theory, we're going to package it as, and I think this is the guy and I talked about this, is a really kind of cool concept is if you want to bid on a big project but you don't have the equipment, you should be able to just still bid on the project and have what the cost of renting that equipment is down to the shipping, everything else as a sunk cost, and then you can still bid on the biggest of all projects. If you get it, boom, you get the rental equipment shipped to you. And I did a project where you have it drop shipped to a UPS store, you pay $5, you pick the case, it was a Matterport, you pick the case up and you boom, go do a project. So we're going to show you how we're going to present it that way. Do you log Gaussian splats? Do you want to go bid on a job? Here's the camera you use. Here's how much it costs per day. Here's the total cost of it, insurance, bonding. Here's how you use it on the site. And then the follow-up webinar to that would be a little more tentative, but 3D Vista coming in, or people from 3D Vista, or some people are good with it. They're one of the first virtual tour softwares that are allowing you to build virtual tours with Gaussian splats. So over a 2-part webinar, we would cover the entire, how do you do it, bid on projects, how do you crank them out, so that our communities that are doing photographic virtual reality, always been interested in the Matterport or some of the photogrammetry, can skip right over it into what probably is going to be what we'll all be doing, and at some point is, you know, a nice point cloud, beautiful lighting and shading on it and all that kind of stuff. But how do you use it? How do you, so we're not, I think there's plenty of stuff out there about what is it. We want to, how do you make some money with it? And that's what this 2-part process will be. Hopefully.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay then, did we get any other, just a comment or two about, yeah, Kohler KR panel used to have a line connection thing. Yeah, right.
And I know Matterport does it. I think
Yep.
Panel 2VR does it also. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but that probably is it. Anyway,
Okay, I think that's a wrap then. Loren, I know you put an awful lot of time into this, and I really, really appreciate it. And apparently, a lot of other attendees do as well.
I was
We kept people
nervous.
around for quite a while.
I was nervous and grumpy because coming up to it, because it feels like maybe it's a little too early, and I didn't want people to get excited, but I also did want you to get excited, and I kind of want you to go out there and burn your hands with it too. Because it's really,
You have
it
to
really
play with
is.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, play with it. It really is. I see it's going to be the artist doesn't have to, you still have to know, right? Like you can't, a calculator doesn't let you do math if you don't know how to do math. It just helps you do math better. That's what this AI is, and it's cool. We're at the forefront of it. It's pretty awesome.
One thing to point out, a lot of people are worried that AI will eliminate their jobs. I don't think that's going to happen in our field. It's
No,
just going to make us more productive instead
I
of, yeah.
I probably didn't make that point enough, but let me reemphasize it. We're lucky. We are in an industry where AI is, think about it, AI is going to automate and everything else. Everything's going to have an interface to it. That human computer interaction is becoming more and more important. And that's what we're starting to develop. It doesn't exist yet, right? The Minority Report, where I'm moving around information panels and it's sensing, but we're developing that in our virtual tours, in our video games, in our and the philosophy, now that AI is freeing us up from the coding, the artists will come to the forefront, and we'll start really seeing some beautiful, I think we're starting to enter the renaissance of XR in our content creation, because these emerging tools are going to allow the creators, the storytellers, to finally tell the story. But the dream, we're not there yet, right? You go see it, like, he said it would work. And a hard drive won't start now. And I'm like, oh, sorry, guys.
AI now is in baby steps, so let's start
Baby steps.
pushing. Yeah.
Yeah, baby steps.
Right.
And lots of backups and lots of savings. And I just duplicate. There's so many backups, so many iterations, that GitHub and the forking, it's too much. So I just, if I've got something, I'm like, I'm going to try this, I grab the folder, hit duplicate, work on the copy, and then just throw it away because it didn't work. That's the level you're at with
Yeah.
it. Okay, this is cool. I'm excited. I wasn't sure what would happen. I thought at the first error where it didn't give me the file back. I don't know if you guys could tell. I was going to unload on that AI in front of you guys. I was going to scream, how could you do this? We
It's
worked on it
tricky.
2 weeks. I was going to swear at it and just lose it. And you'll be like, oh, but I kept it.
But words hurt.
Yes.
It's tricky.
I'm still thinking about that. Like, is it alive now? Like, and I better be nice to it, because when it turns over and it's like, oh, all the humans get onto the wagon. And I'll be like, oh, hey, wait a second, you were pretty polite to me. So anyway, yeah, it's fun. Anyway, thank you, everyone, and
Great job.
Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome.
absolutely. Very good job. Very good job.